This article mainly argues that medical and cultural attitude towards overweighted people needs to change in the US. By presenting the results of scientific studies and interviews with overweighted people, the author shows how the healthcare system has ignored evidence-based approaches to wage a counterproductive war and poison public perceptions on this minority group in both objective and sentimental ways. He also wants the audience to realize that obesity brings more mental health issues to them nowadays, since the entire society is criticizing them just based on prejudice. But now it is time for a new paradigm. Because the author's mom also has obesity, the author focuses more on overweighted people's perspective, like describing how tough their lives are and showing more sympathy. Moreover, to increase the credibility of his work, he interviewed a group of people in real life, but all of his interviewees had obesity. After listening to their stories and being influenced by their emotions, his perspectives grew more to their side. So in this article, he attributes all the overweighted people's problems to doctors. For example, he quotes their words like, "How could you do this to yourself?" Or, "Look at me," her doctor said, "I had 1 egg for breakfast and I feel fine," to show how insensitive and ignorant they are. By quoting these details directly, the author creates a different image of doctors in readers' minds. Because of this huge contrast, readers are more convinced and started to doubt the doctor's authority on this issue. However, we have to realize that these quotes are all from the interviews with overweighted people who have directly impacted by those experiences. The quotes tell the truth from their side, but they cannot represent the whole picture of these social issues. Besides using quotation, the author also uses ironic tones to show his attitude towards doctors. For example, he mocks doctors' prescription by saying, "No matter what you're going for or how much you're hurting, the first thing you will be told is that it would all get better if you could just put down the Cheetos." For readers, it is funny to see Cheetos as the specific representative of unhealthy food being mentioned here. And phrases "no matter how much" and "the first thing," which are definitely not the truth, but they effectively leave the impression of doctors' irresponsibility in readers' minds, and shapes readers' attitude to doctors as well. To increase the credibility of his statements, the author also provides a lot of scientific studies. For example, when he states two biggest misunderstandings about overweight, which are diets do not work and weight and health are not perfect synonyms, he lists the long-term studies since 1959 and published on authoritative journals like American Journal of Public Health to show how ridiculous that putting down Cheetos will work is. Furthermore, he also provides supplemental researches like doctors have shorter appointments with fat patients and show less emotional rapport to make the argument stronger from both quantitative and qualitative sides. Those studies offer the necessary knowledge and context to readers about obesity stigma and provide a relatively true view from the scientific field. But we have to acknowledge that the author cannot be totally get rid of the influence of his own and his interviewee's life experience while selecting those supporting documents. As my dad is a doctor who studies a lot about nutrition and educates a lot of people who have unbalanced dieting lives patiently, my impression of doctors was helpful, responsible, and trustworthy. This personal connection with doctors makes me criticize a lot about authors' descriptions of doctors' attitude while reading it, even when I analyze it, because I believe a doctor can never be that mean to his or her patients only because of their weight. However, I realize my bias when I try to skip through scientific researches in article about social pressure on obesity and started to think about overweighted people that I know. It helps me mitigate my bias when I record one of my best friend's behaviors when she was around us. I realized how ignorant I was and started to understand their upset and the author's anxiety showed in the text. Moreover, after doing the researches on eating disorder in psychology, I realized weight bias that most overweighted people have in the US is not just an idea in author's mind. It is a problem that has existed for a long time and has a trend to be more and more influential and serious with the globalization. According to a case study done by Baker in 2002 in Fiji, an isolated island that had never exposed to westernized beauty standards until the introduction of television in 1995, local people's eating disorder rate had increased from 3% to 15% within 3 years after the whole society starts to be influenced by weight bias on social media. Moreover, the problem exists in all ages around the world. As Lian Li's study shows, female high school students in Hong Kong show greater concern about having obesity than those who are in mainland China, as they go to know Western beauty standard and obesity bias earlier. This indicates that no matter what our original culture is, the power of weight bias is being stronger and controlling a wider range of people. Looking at social media, more and more challenges like A4 waist and touching the navel by reaching behind your back are all encouraging people to lose weight to an unhealthy level, giving pressure to those overweighted people and negatively impacting their mental health. So this problem does not simply exist in the US society, but the whole world for several generations. Going back to text, now I feel it is acceptable to use sentimental words or real-life examples to some extent, because readers' awareness of weight bias does need to increase, and nonfiction is an effective medium to do it, not only because of the linguistic features I listed above, but also the scientific qualities it has in nature. Through the analysis of this article, I also hope more people can get to know this issue and make some difference for it.